Well, hello everyone. It's Bruski and Paddy and Jeremy, and we are back for another episode of the Savage Bruski Show. Uh say hi, y'all. What's up? What's up?
Hello and good evening, Miss Lady. That's
What's up,
Step Brothers. Sorry.
That's not creepy at all, Paddy.
What's up, everyone? Finally home from my trip. Don't know. It was totally creepy.
Damn it. I shouldn't have opened up with Step Brothers then. My bad. It smells like ketchup and onions in here.
Oh boy. All right. Well, guys, this week, last podcast, if you joined us last time at the Legion of Doom, we plotted for a Q&A session, and we thought we would take questions in various formats and give you guys our various answers this episode. And I think that's what we're going to lead off for. I think we can do a question and just go round table. Paddy, why don't you kick off, man? What you got?
All right. Yeah, I've got let me pull up the exact question here. So one of my first questions, oh yeah, and that was the third one that I remember we were talking about. So if you had to dine at one restaurant, which would you choose? And the options are, you might need to edit this out because I can't freaking find the picture all of a sudden. There it is. All right. So choose your restaurant. Would you rather eat at Goth Girl IHOP, MILF Denny's, E-Girl Applebee's, or Lego Indiana Jones Fazoli's? Jeremy, go.
Well, we all know what Jeremy wants. It's obviously Goth IHOP.
Okay, Savage, what are you going to say?
You know, that's a tough one. I was gonna do a Carl from Aqua Teen, go through the list again, but man, I probably out of those choices, I'd probably have to take MILF Denny's because I can't say no to pancakes and bacon, or probably Lego Indiana Jones Fazoli's.
Wait a second. Okay, so you said that you can't say no to eggs and bacon, but Goth Girl IHOP was an option.
Well, you know, if I have to pick a MILF over a girl.
Fair. So, 10 years ago, I would have chose Goth Girl IHOP.
Yes.
And technically I did. That was the woman that I married that became my best friend. And for natural and obvious reasons, I have upgraded to the noble pursuit of MILF Denny's.
Well, hold on here now. If they're a MILF, they've already been left by someone else because they're obviously crazy. Get them while they're young. They're not crazy yet. They'll become crazy eventually. That's when you go for the next young one.
I think there's a reason why. There's a very clear reason why you're still on Goth Girl Denny or Goth Girl IHOP.
What our fine viewers at home don't know is that we found the advertisement for the Goth Girl IHOP, and it was very, very tempting. Yes.
So it's a question that was kicking around some of my Twitter circles. I think out of like the 300 or so people that I follow personally, my usual suspects were all kicking it around. And the Goth Girl IHOP was the clear winner by a large margin. And I can say you're on the right path, but you need to lean a little bit more to the right to see the Denny's behind the corner, the one that's opened 24 hours a day, that will take you in when you're cold and weary and offer you a big glass of milk, if you know what I'm saying.
Them Graham Slams, man, you can't go wrong. To be fair and to be transparent, though, I mean, my fiance she would be goth. She's closet goth because she can't do a lot of that because of work right now, but she would be goth. So realistically, Goth IHOP had a shot. Just up against MILF Denny's.
I just feel bad for E-Girl Applebee's because it's like you're gonna go in there, you're gonna pay for one of those anytizers. It's gonna come late. It's gonna come cold, and it's gonna come without any affection whatsoever.
Yeah, but they got margaritas.
But you unethical, sick bastards, you didn't choose the true Lego Indiana Jones Fazoli's. That was the option. It was a trap for both of you. It was a trap for myself. I fell for it. And I was trying to save the both of you by putting the emphasis on Lego Indiana Jones Fazoli's. We all failed this test. So anyway, that was my first question.
I
don't know.
lost the game.
I don't know what a Fazoli's is, so
It's not about knowing what a Fazoli's is. It's knowing that it is the moral option. It was
Look,
the
you had-
chosen one.
Look, you had Lego and Indiana Jones. I'm gonna go. You chose wisely and shut the hell up. All right.
was close to picking that. If I'd known what a Fazoli's was, I probably would have.
I could just imagine, the one of the knights of King Arthur's court sitting there in his chainmail and his goatee, and he's like, "You have chosen poorly, or you have chosen unwisely," and then we all just like grow old and decrepit there on the spot, sitting at a Denny's table, like, ah.
Oh man, what have we gotten ourselves into here, ladies and gentlemen?
How's that for a hot open?
Yeah, way to open this one up, Pat.
Well,
Can
so
already see all the
let's
hate
save-
comments we're gonna get.
You asked for it.
it's like I thought this was a hobby podcast. How the hell do we get into fine dining? What the hell?
Whoa. Fine dining and women are a hobby, and again, a noble pursuit.
Trivial pursuits. No, I'm just kidding.
Trivial pursuits. That's right.
Ah, brother. Okay. All right. Well, good opener. Good opener. All right. What else you got?
The next question is, and this one was posted to me by a very affluent and intelligent person on the Basic Experts Gilded. What do you call those channels? Gilded server.
Hmm.
So this comes from Roland Bones Ryan, and he has an excellent Twitter account. I'm hoping that his Twitter account is the same as his Gilded username. If so, it's at Roland Bones Ryan. But he does these deep dives on RPG content, rules, genres, settings, and the like. And he asked a question about, is there a way for you to, I'm going to make sure I get this question exactly right. I can't find it, of course. Of course, the pictures aren't showing up all of a sudden. I believe his question was, is there a way to include psionics into RPGs without totally bonking up the power creep or bonking up the play style?
A fine question.
Yeah, here it is. Can psionics actually be incorporated into an RPG without being massively borked?
Bork.
So, I tried not to give him any spoilers. Personally, I said no. I know that he's probably done a deep dive about this. And for that, he actually expressed a little bit of interest about coming onto the podcast. So I want to save any and all thesis that he came up with for him to share with himself. On a personal note, I said no. I think that psionics were a way for wizards and sorcerers who don't know how to even lift bro feel like they're stronger at lower levels, while helping martial classes feel like they're on par with spellcasters at higher levels. And for the most part, they add a whole lot of extra rules. I mean, even an entire book or two per edition, depending on which one you play.
Complete psionics.
Yeah, exactly. And how many versions of that book existed?
Psionics for dummies. Oh boy, I can't wait to jump into that one.
Oh yeah, I got this soul knife here.
Funny
Ain't that
enough.
clever?
Funny enough, during 3rd edition D&D, there was a Dungeons and Dragons for Dummies book.
Yeah, I know.
Jeremy,
Not
what
gonna say
did
I
you
read
think
it, but I know.
what did you think of psionics?
So for fantasy, psionics doesn't fit what I picture in a fantasy RPG. It is kind of a weird gray area to me. Like, you already have magic, you have combat. Why do you need brain people? But there are classic monsters such as the mind flayers that are a psionic type race. So it's like basically their nature, as well as you got the Gith that are psionic raced. So there's a small place for it, maybe within your enemies, to give them a little bit of flavor for fantasy only. Now in your sci-fi games, I don't think magic fits at all. And so psionics replaces magic in a very elegant ways. There was a Babylon 5 RPG that used the 5th edition rules put out by Mongoose Publishing. I mean, the 3rd edition rules put out by Mongoose Publishing. And they used psionic rules for the Psy-Core in that game, and it worked really well. Unfortunately, I don't think there's been much sci-fi in 5th edition that actually focuses on psionics. They have mostly just went ahead and let you use your normal classes. I do believe Stargrave has their I think they're called Solarians, and they're basically psionics. They're like Jedi for Starfinder. I didn't really get too deep into Starfinder when I started playing it, and nobody in our group was actually playing one of those characters, so I don't remember exactly how the rules work for those guys. And there is a sci-fi RPG called Esper Genesis, where your Esper ability is kind of a psionic ability, maybe. It's also more like the Force, where like any character can kind of eventually tap into their Esper essence. So I think possibly in a sci-fi universe there is that ability, because psionics is increases your power of your brain, and supposedly, you know, in the future we're going to get more powerful with our brains, so we'll actually have people that are supposedly psychics or telekinetics. That's my opinion.
Okay. I know. So there's another feller that I follow on the Twitter, and he is at Rogue Scholar MDC. He's a huge Rifts fan. I have never played Rifts.
Ooh, I
So
love Rifts.
oh yeah, I remember you saying something about that, and I'm pretty sure one of our old mutual El Paso buddies was a huge fan of Rifts too. Now he swears by psionics within the concept of the Rift system, which I'm pretty sure is kind of like that Hyperborea, somewhere between like heavy metal and He-Man type setting. Is that correct?
Well, it's more like if modern Earth opened a bunch of portals to every known possibility in the universe, and you'd get aliens and the Lanteans come back to Earth. So it's just a mashup. It very much is like the other one, with the cyber ninjas. Why can't I think of the name of it?
You got me there. I don't know.
Shadowrun. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot like Shadowrun, except for maybe a little bit more grimdark, because basically the Earth is fucked. There was like all these rifts opened up. The world was kind of thrown into turmoil, chaos. There's this alien called the Zitric or the Zixes. I can't pronounce it right. AJ Pickett does an awesome video about them on YouTube. It's an alien race. It's like a bug, and they're on Earth, and they're basically colonizing all of North America. And the only people trying to stop him is like the bad guys, which are America. America's the bad guys, and we're called the Coalition. And we hate anything that's not pure humans. And yeah, I mean, and there's some really cool another bad guy type thing called the Borg, which are basically Terminators, like from the movie Terminator. So yeah, Rifts is awesome. I love the universe. The game though, ooh, man, that's a rough game to play. Want to roll 10,000 d6s? Play Rifts.
Wasn't Shadowrun the same way? It was just fucking fistfuls of dice.
Yeah, Shadowrun, you roll a lot of d6s too.
Nice.
I remember a little bit about that. I was interested in Shadowrun because wasn't that Ralpartha? Or am I thinking of the wrong?
Yeah, Ralpartha did a bunch of miniatures for it.
Yeah. Okay.
The only real interaction I had with Shadowrun is there was that arena first person shooter that was on the Xbox. I played that, and I remember the first time I looked at what was that Blizzard game? Overwatch. I remember
Overwatch.
the first time I looked at Overwatch, I was like, yeah, that's like Shadowrun. No, I don't need to play that anymore.
Not touching that. Yeah. I kind of lean in the same direction. I hear psionics. The first thing I of course think of is StarCraft.
Yeah, with the Protoss.
The Protoss, and you had the psychic humans, the ghosts, and you had even the Zerg had the Cerebrits with the whole thing. And obviously that's not tabletop RPG necessarily, but the way I look at it is it's another way of explaining it without saying magic. It's like everything psionics do is comparable in some other way. In other words, you have the concept of telekinesis, and you can obviously move things with magic spells. You can have the magic hand or magic appendage. You can have mind reading. You can have persuasion. You can have deciphering languages and things. I think it was just another way of describing it, and possibly a better descriptor for the races or the beings that were more that way than to just say they're psychic, which is kind of like, okay, we give it a fancy term and it'll make more sense. But I generally would think it's better off in a sci-fi setting than in a sword and sorcery sort of environment. That's the only thing that comes to mind with me. I don't think the rules necessarily break it. I just think it adds a level of complexity you don't need. It's like, why have two groups of magic that do the exact same thing other than to make it semi-accessible to another person? Maybe that's I don't know. I'd really have to weigh the game and see what other alternatives there were. But that's me in a nutshell. I think it's more a sci-fi thing than a sword and sorcery thing.
Well, I think we wrapped that one up kind of concisely, and just to kind of round it out, really is there. I'm a huge fan of, there are going to be RPG settings and RPG rule sets that are going to handle certain themes and special abilities better than others. And I can guarantee you any of them are going to be better than Dungeons and Dragons. But anyway, the last question was asked by Mr. the Basic Expert himself. How important is it for those two genres of war games and role-playing games to be linked, considering one sprung from the other?
So I don't think every RPG needs to have a war game associated with it. Personally, it is kind of cool when they do. Actually, I was last night on going through all my files and was looking at the rules for combat in the book they put out with AD&D battle. What's it? Battle Systems, I think is what it was called. And I was like, I wonder if there's stuff in here that is still relevant to today's kind of timeline, because like we've talked about, I'm kind of thinking about making my own skirmishy type rules, but I might want to make them a little bit more crunchy. There's a lot of games that are pretty simple to play out there, and I think I want something a little bit more crunch, where maybe it's 2 or 3 people, or maybe just one person, like you're playing the Mandalorian from the show, and he has to take on a group of like 10 or 15 stormtroopers. And to represent this, I want to have like a little bit more crunch. Like, so how much damage does this one piece of armor protect from if he hits it in this arm? So it's going to get a little bit of RPG element in it, obviously, but also have the miniature combat, because I want to represent it on a tabletop. Also, I don't know if you guys have been following, and I know we've been kind of bashing on Dungeons and Dragons a lot lately from Wizards of the Coast, but they're actually doing 2 really, really cool things that I noticed today, just scrolling through the Twitter sphere and the Instagrams after I posted up my 3 photos. They're releasing a new skirmish combat game, and I believe the name is Onslaught.
And
I've
it's
not seen
severe
this.
flashbacks to blind mini boxes. And what was that? What was the game that Jorge brought in? That was the I think it was the 4E skirmish game.
The one that came, each faction had its own box.
Yeah, its own box with its own dungeon and everything, and then you kind of like link the battle maps together.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but I actually have 2 of those boxes.
The sets were sweet. They
really nice
didn't
models.
kick off the way that they should have.
I think they didn't support it well enough, and that's the problem that Dungeons and Dragons under Wizards has always kind of had, they put out these miniature games and then they don't support them well enough for that actually to pick up a following. But yeah, it is called Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught, and it is $50, and you get 2 factions in the box. It looks like there's Drow as possibly one of the factions you get, and maybe that's just like an adventuring party. It looks like there's halflings, maybe some half orcs. It's funny, they have all these half things that are gonna not exist in the new edition. You get a black dragon, a troll, an enten, some gnolls, and some kobolds as well. So for $50,
Sounds
you get
cool.
about 15 miniatures, it looks like, roughly, maybe 20. Some tiles, some dice. So it looks really interesting. It's in conjunction with WizKids, and they are all pre-painted, but it's not blind box. And it looks like it's about $135 on Amazon right now. But it will have also like blind boxes to go with it, so you can get those. I believe they're for like $30. I'm not sure if they're blind box, but I was just kind of checking this out today. And then they are also doing, for those people that don't like the pre-painted, their own like hard plastic build kits. And I believe those were called
The thing that you buy to make your own character.
They're not deep cuts. I think I know
no,
what you're
I
talking about.
almost call them deep cuts, but they're not. They had a name specifically, and I'm just having a brain fart. But they're also through with WizKids in conjunction, I believe. And they're a hard plastic kit, and they look pretty nice. And so I'm almost sure that they're using a lot of the same sculpts, but it's now just a hard plastic kit that you can build and paint yourself.
Okay.
So both those things really excited me about something Wizards is doing right, the good right now for me. They're giving out a new skirmish type miniature game, as well as some build and paint your own models, which they've been lacking the build and paint your own models for quite a while. They did a resin series with the launch of at the end of 4th, beginning of 5th edition, and do Gal Force 9, but those were expensive and they were kind of dinky legs and arms, so they could break really easy.
So I think the only real thing that I appreciate about this idea of the Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught, and maybe I should have looked it up while we were talking about it, but if they harken back to the chainmail rules, I think that would be a pretty good win, and getting some of the normies into tabletop wargaming that maybe couldn't see their way into Age of Sigmar or 40K. But the simple fact that I've seen Wizards of the Coast trash Dungeons and Dragons and trash Magic the Gathering, I feel like I would be doing our audience a no-go, a no goodies if I didn't say approach with extreme caution.
Well, I'm gonna take one stance on this, and that being, if we're looking at it game specific, then it just depends on which manufacturer, which writer you're looking at. If you just look at it from the standpoint of the question, like, do tabletop RPGs and war games, I'm botching the question, but essentially, should they relate to each other, or should they have anything to do with each other? Did I get that basically right?
Yeah, that's basically the question.
Well, I look at it this way. Let's take a look at this for a minute. If you look at D&D, or you look at Vampire the Masquerade, or you look at I don't know, IKRPG, if you think about it, it's a very small scale skirmish game with more rules and story and narrative driving it. You're just dealing, you may or may not even have models, maybe it's all pencil and paper, but hypothetically, you've got your party of 5 or 6 or 10 people, and you've got a couple, you've got minions, you might have a boss, you might have NPCs, you might have whatever, but if you think about it, it's just a limited scale in terms of the models and in terms of what you're doing that easily gets blown up into full scale battles. The narrative could still be there. Taking it out of RPG for a minute, I mean, that's your dead zone to Firefight. That's your kill team to 40k. That's your IKRPG to War Machine. I think they absolutely can exist in the same universe, and I think you absolutely can have one transfer to the other. The mechanics be similar. Can you do as much with it? No, that's a loophole to jump through, obviously, but I absolutely think it can be. Sure.
Yeah, and to actually answer the question, I think the moment that you have your character roll a dice to see if his axe gets incorporated into the anatomy of an enemy, it becomes a war game. Minis are not. I mean, you're practicing battle, even if you're doing a hardcore like role playing scenario where it's the way that you're using your words and the knowledge that your characters have generated. It's all simulated war game. It feels a lot more like a war game the moment that you bring out the battle mat and the minis, which everybody who's ever talked to me knows I'm a huge fan of. So that being the history that Gygax and Arneson were hanging out playing historicals, and then they slowly went from like what is that, like French battles and revolutionary battles, and then making their way
Napoleonics
back. Yeah, that's what was the word I was looking for. Thanks.
I
Bruski.
believe the game was actually,
Neapolitanonics. Yeah.
I think the actual game they were playing was called Little Wars.
Exactly, and that was H.G. Wells's game. That was like the very first war game that was ever made. Is that right? It was H.G. Wells, right?
Well, I don't think that's the one they were playing, but H.G. Wells did create what we would consider like the ancestor of all historical gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So historical gaming basically became chainmail, which became the basis for Dungeons and Dragons. So RPGs developed from miniature gaming in
Yeah,
a sense.
the whole reason why they did it was because they wanted to track battles. They wanted to track what happened in between battles and games, and then they slowly got more granular with it.
And Wizards of the Coast was originally just a publisher of adventures for Dungeons and Dragons games. And then they eventually branched off and they started putting out their own world, which became the Old World. And then they started with their sci-fi game, which I believe was originally titled Laserburn. And then they went to the Rogue Trader.
Yep.
So yeah, we would not have with a 40K without D&D.
So yeah, the basic expert. I think war games and RPGs. It's like saying, is a pickle a cucumber? Technically, yes.
Well said. Well said. Yes.
I would say if there's any one RPG system out there that would really benefit from miniatures to be able to be used as a war game, man, it would have to be Rifts. That poor game has never got its due for miniatures.
Well, I was looking at all of my Cthulhu Death May Die miniatures and thinking I was talking about Wretched Epic by the Red Room. They just released the Wretched versus 4 issue, which is a kind of like an anthology. They cycle through the different universes that the Wretched rules play for, like Wretched Darkness, Wretched Bastards, Wretched Space. And my personal favorite is Wretched Epoch, which follows characters through late 19th, early 20th century Paris, France, and in around that area when the Apache gangs were rolling through. And it's pretty Lovecraftian. A lot of the stories are pretty dark, whodunit with a lot of culty type stories. And yeah, I was just thinking about how cool it would be to finish painting up all my Cthulhu Death May Die because they're very era appropriate. And then I would have all my cultist miniatures. I'd have all my investigator miniatures. And I think it would make for a pretty fun role-playing game. I don't know how many people are necessarily live streaming that, but kind of doing like a something akin to what Miranda does with her Wargamer Girl channel, doing the RPG, filming it, but instead of it having it be like a live play, just have it unfold as the narrative with the miniatures being at the forefront.
That's very much how I was doing my my RPG for the Iron Kingdoms down in El Paso. I was doing the live stream, which was everybody playing, but then I was editing it up to more like almost be a battle report for miniature gaming.
Well, an IKRPG lends itself to that really well.
Yeah. Sure was a nice system.
Do they still support it or no?
It's all 5e now.
They've gone to the 5th edition Dungeon and Dragon rules. They've actually released 4 big books for it. The main rule book, adventure book to go with that. Then they have their Borderlands book, which has got more your monsters on the outskirts, and then they just put out their Nightmare Empire book, which is like the Crix area.
They also put out a small like a River Raiders type supplement. My buddy, well, I can't say he's necessarily my buddy, but somebody who I look up to in the RPG scene, Jim Grim Desborough. He was saying the other day about how the ship to ship battle mechanics that are included in this supplement should be what other rule sets aspire to. And he kind of lamented Spelljammer for having dropped the ball on ship combat, especially when Privateer Press puts out a rule set that looks really good, and unfortunately under the 5e banner.
Alrighty. I think that wraps that one.
Yeah, those were my 3 questions.
Okay. Jerry, you got any?
I don't have a big enough phone because people giving me questions yet.
No biggie. We'll get you there.
Yeah, we'll get you there. Don't you worry.
Reminder, y'all.
Kind of trailblazing on Instagram.
Oh yeah, my Instagram grew like 8 people today.
With 3 pictures.
Just 3 pictures posted up, 8 people in one day. I was like, all right, good enough.
We'll give you some shout outs and some love on that, help you get going. But yeah, you're doing good, man. Keep it up. I've only got 3, and I don't know. I use that NGL app, so I don't know who actually asked these, and I don't really care because they're just kind of, decent little questions. So, first question: how big of a nerd are you, 1 to 10? Jeremy.
100.
No. Double digits. Double digits.
Okay, then 99.
Oh, dang it.
Well, boy. He met the criteria.
I'm pretty much the biggest nerd you could probably be. I only don't get nerdy when I'm hanging out with a few friends that I have that aren't nerds, which are very few friends. My best friend's not really a nerd, although I tried making her a nerd, and she was down. She was gonna try D&D with me, and then she actually planned out my 5 my 5 leagues from the Borderlands campaign with me, and we were working. She was drawing the map for me because she's an artist. But then we had a little bit of a falling out, and so that none of that's actually happened yet.
Dang.
I actually haven't talked to her since her birthday, really much. So 3 months. So I haven't really spoke to her. But besides my brother, she's my best friend.
Don't look at her. Look at me. Your brother is a journal.
Move here, and then you can be here, and we will make sweet love, Paddy.
That's so.
Whoa.
So I need to provide some context. Jeremy and I aren't blood brothers. I adopted him in El Paso. Kind of like a cancer would adopt a person. I just grew onto him, and I didn't let go, no matter how much he protested.
You just
and then he
fed
fed
him
me
until you slowly fell
yeah,
asleep.
and then he fed me with all the sugar he couldn't give to anybody else, because I found out how to just right out of him.
Oh boy.
And that doesn't sound any better. That sounds so much worse.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paddy is married to a lovely woman. Kitty, we love you. We can't wait to have you be a guest here, and we think you are awesome.
But anyway, so Jeremy and I became friends because he was the asshole behind the counter who I was able to equally give it back to. But then we've both found out that we were like incredible softies. And then he was actually making a lot of money then. And I was his like first commission bay. I started painting all of his IKRPG models, and like the more we hang out, the better we became friends. And then we were like nigh inseparable until he moved to Washington. And then I did the very best I can by moving to northern Idaho. And it's splitting hairs. We miss each other all the time, but if we ever really need to, we can always drive together and see each other.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just about 5 hours,
Yeah.
depending
Not
on
too bad.
traffic and the mountain.
The mountain. Speaking of mountains, what is our favorite 6'7" raven-haired handsome man? What type of questions did you get?
Well, that was the first one. How big of a nerd are you?
Oh
1
yeah,
to
that's
10.
right. That's right.
Patty, why don't you answer that before we totally forget where we are?
Gosh, yeah, I'm already forgetting where I'm at.
Hey man,
I-
rum is a hell of a drink. Anyway.
that was me like sweeping all my dirt under the rug. No, please pay no mind.
Too
Obviously,
late, you're in.
Damn. You know,
Obviously, Patty's at the 1,000 mark.
oh my gosh, negative. I mean, if
over
I'm being realistic,
9,000.
there's gonna be a lot of stuff that as a nerd I should be more than aware of. But let's list off the things why I'm not a perfect 10. Nerd. Attractiveness, I'd give myself a 7.75, maybe an 8.5. Being modest.
No, out of 10, not inches.
Exactly. Like things that I should be more aware of than I am. Babylon 5, Star Trek. Let's see, Xena and Hercules. I have little but fond memories of both of those shows.
Lucy Wallace. Please.
Oh yeah. So, but again, like there's a lot of things that I should be far more aware of that I have a tangential exposure to over my course of being a nerd. If I'm trying to make my papa proud, I know that he would be proud of me saying I'm a 10 out of 10. I don't think I'm quite there yet.
Here's a fact for you. Carl Urban was Julius Caesar in both of those shows.
Yep.
Huh.
Very true.
How old was he back then?
I don't know. Young.
Oh, he was just
Early
starting.
20s.
He was early 20s. I think he was even modeling.
I wouldn't have guessed it. I think when he was being what was the character he was in the first Thor movie or the Thor movies?
Oh, he's oh man, why am I having a brain
I just
fart?
remember him talking about his rifles, Des and Troy, or Des and Troy.
Full Bogan accent. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't think he was that old. Good for him.
Yeah, I should totally know that character's name too.
One of the
Kicking
writers of
myself in the
Rohan.
Maybe I'm not a 10.
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't know enough
there's-
about comics.
There's a lot of things that we could be nerdy on. Like I used to have an encyclopedic knowledge of most of the 3.5 books. And if you would have asked me, I don't know, 10 years ago, what the steps 1 through 16 are of grappling, I could recite them to you and probably even give you a page number and paragraph. I play a lot of war games. I play a lot of RPGs. So I'm well versed in a lot of those. There's just a lot of nerdy pop culture that I think my life would probably be enriched having known, but I'm just so enamored with everything else that's being made these days that I can't keep up. I'm literally drowning in things that people suggest that I watch. One of the guys I really look up to, we talked about last show, Venger Satanis. I don't think there's an evening that goes by where he's not telling Twitter about a movie that he's watching. And then you read about it, then you read in Chalt and you're like, oh, well, that scenario makes a lot more sense now.
I do have my list of what movies give me inspiration for adventures or ideas for games.
What about you, Bruski? What scale from 1 to 10 is the Brusk man?
Get a wheelbarrow.
Oh.
Now, if I'm being honest, I would probably say a 6, and the answer is going to be along similar lines to yours, Patty. Let me break it down this way. There are things that I have dived into and can tell you, again, almost everything about. I've read every single Ender's Game universe book. I have literally watched almost every episode in every series that has the word Gundam in it. I can recite you any amount of 40K or Warhammer Fantasy lore. At the same time, I've probably read one Wheel of Time book. I've read one Shannara book. I've read one Dragonlance book. I got halfway through the Dune series. I was not that big a fan of Star Trek Enterprise, but I can tell you everything under the sun about Voyager, DS9, Next Gen, and original series. I would say, and a lot of the guys that I work with and that I know, that this is more like a bad word, but I think it will make better sense here. In a sense, you could say I'm a dilettante, and that there are things that I've really jumped into and latched onto, and the vast majority where I skim the surface and go, cool, not really so much my thing, and move on. And I think that probably is my biggest holdback. I just, there are things I don't know about. I haven't really deep dived, and that's just kind of where I'm at. But the things I'm into, I will tell you so much about. I'm pretty much a walking strategy guide for anything in Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, Legend of Dragoon, any number of JRPGs, and I can literally, this item, this creature, this level, find it over here, blah blah blah. So yeah, kudos on that. A lot of anime, a lot of background there. Even to music, I'm the one guy that can literally tell you the whole backstory to every single one of Coheed and Cambria's albums. And there's people who go, wait, they actually
remember
that was a concept band. They actually have a story. There's a plot to this random ass lyric that I have no idea what it means.
You were the one that told me about they have a comic book that's pretty sci-fi.
Yeah, the Amory Wars.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I really loved that. And when I first started listening to them, I didn't know there was a story. I didn't know there was anything to it. And I did that research, and eventually, I know the whole deal. Again, it just goes to show I'm either all in or I'm not really trying. That's really where I'm at. So in all honesty, I would say 6 out of 10, because I got my shit down, but I don't have all the shit down.
Those what are those pentagon or hexagon like statistical graphs that show up in some video games? Which ones I'm talking about, where like
it's like showing various stats on a letter grade. How good is your offense? How good is your defense? How good is your armor? How good is your range?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like that question would be a lot better if we can establish what are the 5 or maybe even as many as 6 or 7. What do you call a 7-sided polygon?
Septagon.
A septagon. So if you could come up with 5, 6, or 7 like pillars of nerdiness, what do you think would be one of them? Savage. Then we'll move on to Jeremy, and then I'll see if I can come up with something.
What do I think one of those pillars would be?
Yeah. And how many pillars do you think there should be?
Oh God, man, we could easily spend 2 hours figuring that one out.
Oh man, should we just save that for another show then?
That could be a thing. What is nerdiness? And that's probably going to be a marathon run.
All right. Yeah. Well, okay. So this time I'm putting it in the group chat right now. So that way we're not messaging each other an hour before we get together. Hey, what were we talking about tonight?
Right. Because we do that, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes, we are absolutely pulling things out of our rear ends, and other times we are very well prepared. So.
All right. I just sent it. Okay. What was your second question then?
That's one. Another one is, what is the best kind of miniature paint?
Well, that's impossible to answer.
It's a preference thing.
Easy answer for Paddy.
Yeah, but we all know your answer is wrong, so you can start.
Okay, I am a huge fan of the new wave. You can call me a painter boomer. You can call me a lazy guy. Man, I love contrast in speed paints. I love the speed inks and the speed glazes. I love how they work. I love to be able to sit down and paint a mini. I love the fact that I can pour some paints into a palette, and me and my 6-year-old son can paint together. I have trouble going back to any other paint, and if I really ever needed to make a different color or darken a tone, earlier, I think in the first episode and the second episode, we were talking about Monument Hobbies. If I have Monument Hobbies coal black and titanium white, and then any number of contrast, speed, or can't remember the third companies. They also have I think it's like Turbo Dorks has a speed paint variant. I love those paints. I think they are the best paints. I think anybody who's looking to pick up paints, you should start there. But you're going to run into a lot of the same criticisms that I'm sure Jeremy will illicitly level at me. It reminds me of when like digital art really started to become a thing.
That's not art.
Exactly. Or like when people were brushing with traditional brushes and then somebody was like, I'm gonna airbrush this mini, and then everybody was like, oh yeah, no,
painting.
that gradient looks too even. That's airbrush. That's not painting. Dude, anything is better than bare plastic model. Anything is better than bare pewter model. Just paint your minis,
Oh.
and if they're not great, that's fine. You're gonna get better, or you're just gonna have a bunch of minis that you painted from the heart. And I'll tell you what, that's a gratifying feeling.
Well said. Well put.
I don't agree. Sorry, Pat.
Jeremy, over to you.
You're trash, so I don't care.
So I don't have one specific favorite paint. I can use any paint. Like on my desk in front of me right now, I have GW regular normal paints. I even some as far back as when they had the hexagon tops. But most of those are almost to the dead point. They're running dry. I got Mr. Color from Mr. Hobby. Those are like Japanese paints that are designed specifically for Gundams. You have to get a specific type of thinner to use these and to clean your brushes after because they're not acrylics. I have a ton of Vallejo model colors, a ton of Vallejo game colors. I have Privateer Presses P3 line paints here in front of me. I have Flames of War paints. I have Army Painter paints. I have Turbo Dork. I got Monument Hobbies. I have the Army Painter. Did I already see the Army Painter? I probably said the Army Painter. I even have some contrast paints and some speed paints because there is a use for them. I have
You're trash.
there's a use for them, but don't paint your whole model with them.
Good answer. Good answer.
I have
That's a terrible answer. Don't you encourage him?
I have Americana, which is like the 50-cent paints from Walmart. And I have these one paints that I'm not sure I'm going to use ever again. I think they were designed for painting clothes, but I've used them in the past, and they're called Createx. And after you paint with them, you actually have to hit your model with like a blow dryer. Hit it. They're like heat activated. They need heat to dry. So no one specific paint is the perfect paint for me. It's just what paint do I need right now to get the color that I'm trying to get on my model. And the way I've been using contrast and speed paints right now is to get, they're kind of like almost a wash. So if I need a little bit of a deeper, darker brown than what I'm getting with Agris Earthshade, I could use their Wildwood color. Or if I need a shade that is lighter than Agris Earthshade, I could use their Skeleton Horde, because the 3 shades of brown that Games Workshop puts out, Reikland Fresh Flesh Shade, Sephram Sepia, and Agris Earthshade have specific uses. For me, sometimes if I want a really dark, dirty color, it's always going to be Agris Earthshade. But if I need to go darker than that, the only other thing I could do is mix black. And I don't like mixing paints. I hate mixing paints. That's probably something I need to challenge myself to do more in the future, is to learn how to mix. But why mix when I can just buy 30,000 paints?
Because that's not painting.
That's the best way to paint, Patrick.
That's how the masters of old did it, was mixing red, yellow, and blue. How dare you tarnish that?
They had to go find the stone and grind it down into powder and then mix it with the finest pigments and whale oils and blubber and then stick it on a piece of wood that they chewed into a brush and painted on their backsides for canvas, sonny.
I remember when seeing purple was a sign of valor and nobility.
Oh, man. All right. Well,
Pat, you're just upset that you used to be a better painter than me, and now you just have to contrast paint
Oh
everything.
my God. Okay. You want to know what? We'll settle this.
shots
We'll
fired.
settle this once and for
Shots
all.
fired.
You.
How about you paint something like classically, and then we can do a competition. Classic painting. Let's
Oh,
go.
that's easy. I mean, I could. Okay. The most recent model that I
Challenge
painted.
yourself, Patrick.
The
Stop
most
that.
recent model that I painted classically was Sam McHorn from Riot Quest. You remember that one? The one I painted blue and pink?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll try to take a picture of that one and we'll put it up even against your most recent paint jobs.
I know I can't do my most recent paint jobs. Those are an hour each. I can paint with classic paints just as fast as you paint with contrast.
All right, so I want it to be. It has to be like the same model.
Same model. I don't have a Semicorn. What do you have? You have a bunch of Menoth. I don't have any Menoth.
All right, we're gonna figure this out after
Just
this.
get something.
I want to hear what's. I
Get
want to
something
hear
from Reaper. Get the same model that's cheap enough and affordable enough and gets there fast enough to both of you. And paint it your way. Give yourself a little deadline. Paint it your way, and we'll be the judge.
Savage will be the judge.
Savage will judge you.
All right, so
And he'll
Pat,
judge you
savagely.
savagely.
so are you
Yes.
are you painting classic paints or are you painting all contrast for this? Because with classic paints you're better than
Ooh.
me, but with contrast you're not.
Oh, screw that noise. I could school you on painting any day. Any day, brother. You bring it on. Classic brush with classic paints or new brush with finger paints and contrasts. Ooh, yeah. I'm going to paint models so much better than you. I'm going to lick my brush into the finest points to get the finest dots on the finest and tiniest of eyeballs, and there ain't nothing you could do about it. Ooh.
Okay, macho.
Jeremy
Savage-
wins. Fatality.
Savage, tell me what your favorite paint is, please.
All right. I will jump in here. Okay, so obviously I am a fan of anything dropper bottle to start with. Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I am honestly gravitating towards Reaper miniatures and huge miniatures with honorable mention to Army Painter. And I'll tell you why. Army Painter, in my opinion, has the best miniature sprays. If I'm priming models, I will use their black, their gray, their brown, and I always get a consistent coat. I don't get any issue. It doesn't clump. It doesn't chunk. It doesn't do anything like that. But in terms of the paints themselves, I love Reaper's range. It's A, affordable, B, variable. It's got plenty of different shades because I have only recently started blending and I'm getting fairly good at it, I think. But if I just want to pick the bottle and paint straight out, then they probably would be the best. Huge Miniatures has really good fluorescence, really good individual shades. I love their metals. I don't necessarily, it's not a huge range though. You're not going to find every single individual shade you're trying to duplicate. Army Painter, when it comes to the dropper bottles, I honestly find, I'm not even going into speed paints versus their normal stuff, but I honestly find that their shades, it doesn't matter how many bottles I've gone through, the coverage is garbage. Lava Orange just likes to streak on in an oily mess and it doesn't paint and it doesn't stay. I'm sorry. But
Well, you did say it was orange. Like traditionally, orange and yellow paints are terrible, right?
I'm actually having the same problem with some of Army Painter's paints right now. I have the Greedy Gold, I believe is what it is called. Yep, Greedy Gold. I have 3 bottles of this. And when I first got them, they were my favorite gold. But now they don't even get one layer before it becomes like clumpy almost, or it doesn't give you that coverage. And I'm concerned that like they just don't have the staying power of some of my older paints.
these are the ones you have to absolutely shake the bejesus out of to mix up, or you get those vortex mixers specifically for these. And they started including agitators in the bottles. God bless them.
Yeah, all their air their air paints, they have them
Yep.
standard, and I think the newer paints are getting them now too.
That's correct. And the other plus is that there's certain shades, and this is probably true of all ranges, but there are certain shades that I don't find anywhere else. I can't find Kraken skin anywhere else, and it's this perfect minty green. And
Ooh, that does sound good.
Dude, that was my Ulthway secret weapon. I did black and super light gray Ulthway, and that Kraken skin was my gems, and they all looked like they were glowing bright green. It was killer. I love that, and I can't duplicate that. I've tried it in Reaper, I've tried it in Huge, I've tried it in Citadel, I tried it in Vallejo. I can't exactly match it. So those are my three: Reaper, and Huge, just because they're consistently good. Reaper has the range, Huge has the specialty, and honorable mention to Army Painter for sprays, and because they really do have a good overall range. There are occasional colors that absolutely, whatever reason, go on horribly, but other than that, I still love them. I would still say use them. They're good.
Well, I also like Bones because if you order their paints frequently enough, they always toss in a freebie for you, which is
That
really
too.
nice plus.
I've gotten, I really have been meaning to just do a shout out video on them in general, but I've gotten, I don't know how many samples and even other swag. They'll send you minis, they'll send you patches, they'll send you other stuff, just throwing it in here and there. And it's very nice of them. It's very awesome of them. And I've not once, I've had excellent customer service from the guys at Reaper Minis. Never ever had a problem with them. Nothing delayed, even in, when Texas had those hurricanes, the horrible flooding and storm damage. Never even then. I'd placed an order a couple days before that hit. It wasn't even an issue.
What's an ancillary question while we're on the topic? Which of their miniature lines is your favorite? Other than Cav. I need to make that because we did talk a little bit about Cav last one, but like Chronoscope, their Pathfinder heroes, Dark Haven. What's your favorite mini line from Bones?
Other than Cav, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Dark Haven.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the fantasy sword and sorcery lines that you could use for any D&D-esque
So
line.
the Dark Haven miniatures are the ones that come with the base put under their feet. If you're
Right.
talking about the
Mhm.
pewter models, Warlord is the one that comes that you can put on the square bases because Warlord was their skirmishy miniature game that they'd put out.
I think, I don't have the box in front of me, but I think it's Dark Haven. I'm looking at, I had bought a couple of these. My fiance has a cleric, female cleric with a mace. I've got an elven ranger with swords. They're all plastic. I don't exactly know the range, but I think Dark Haven. I didn't have much need to get into Chronoscape, and obviously, yes, I've done Cav, but that's really all I've done. I've gotten occasional little stuff. Like I got one of their Rocky the Dragon models just because I thought it was cute.
I love those models. I get them for the boys for Christmas.
Yeah, I got a sneaky Rocky around here. I occasionally will grab their bases even just because some of those are really handy to have. But
I have a bunch of their bases from when I did the Kickstarter.
Yep. And to be fair, I use some of their brushes too. I if I'm paying money, I will go to Reaper for brushes because they have some very small ones that work very well, and quality is not terrible. I'm testing out just some generic shit I found on Amazon, but if I'm going for the really small, really detailed, only for mini stuff, they're right now my go-to is Reaper brushes.
Ooh, brushes. That's a whole nother thing. I'm cheap.
I
get
buy the
Walmart
cheapies
brushes.
from Walmart.
Yeah, same. Walmart or craft store.
Well,
yep.
when you share your brushes with a 6-year-old, you just go through a lot of brushes.
Yeah, sorry, Bjorn, we're not going to hand you the Raphael 8404. That's just no.
If he could even conjure the syllables to say that, I still wouldn't give it to him.
Yet. You'll get there, little guy.
Dude, he's starting early. He might just be a regular old. Who's like the renowned miniature painter right now?
Duncan Rhodes.
Yeah, somewhere between Vince Ventrella and Duncan Rhodes.
So he's gonna be a Golden Demon winner.
Dude, some people want their child to be the next Michael Jackson. I want mine to be a golden demon slayer.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Jeremy, what was your favorite Bones line?
My favorite Bones line. I don't like Bones personally. I don't like the. Well,
Well, Reaper
I guess
line, I guess.
I guess Bones Black are decent for the bones, but I like the Warlord miniatures. They have specifically the two factions. They have the Crusaders, which are like the good guy humans, and then they have the the bad guy humans, which I can't remember the name of right now.
Well, for obvious reasons, mine's Chronoscope. What was your third question, Savage?
This one is really short and sweet, and I think we might have to sort of quantify or clarify it. Someone just wrote fave hobby ?
Fave, oh, all right.
I kind of like what
is it like the difference between like putting minis together, painting the minis, putting together and painting the minis is one hobby, making terrain, doing all of the hobby stuff versus actually playing, or doing what a lot of us don't think we do nearly as often, where it's just a bunch of dudes sitting in chairs on a podcast talking about playing games without playing games nearly as often as we like to.
Or for that matter, writing games or designing minis, or that's I think the question is, what's our favorite part of the hobby, or what's the thing that we enjoy most about it?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I see that coming from too. And that's probably a pretty easy question to answer. For me, it's telling a story. It doesn't matter what part of the hobby I'm telling the story in. It's about telling the story.
Cool. Paddy.
Man, what's not to love about the hobby entirely? One of the things that I do love about so if I can take this question as what's your favorite hobby, I'm just going to lump tabletop gaming into one, as opposed to specifically writing or maybe even video games. I think there's a little bit of emotional investment in writing, especially when you've got people who you're sharing your writing with, whether you're writing poetry to put online, short novellas that you publish, self-publish, or if you're like me and you self-publish games on Big Geek Emporium, hashtag not a sponsor, but in hobbying for tabletop games, it feels like there's a lot more investment. First off, people, you're traveling to a common place, you and the person that you're playing or the people that you're playing with. There's the investment of building your models, the investment of buying your models, the investment of painting them if you paint them, the investment of learning the rules is, that's a huge time suck, is to learn the rules. So I'm always very well amazed at the people who really take this hobby with a passion. They show up to the table, and it's not like queuing up for a raid in WoW per se, or even competing in a large lobby for, I don't know, COD or whatever the kids are playing. I used to play MAG on PlayStation 3, so that the original 256 player games. But you'd still get people who are like rage quit. And I'm not saying that our hobby is free of that necessarily, that I don't think you get it nearly as often, because again, people are just more emotionally and time and monetarily invested into the experience. And I've had a lot of bad days video gaming. I can't specifically recall an anecdote of my own that I've had a bad day of tabletop gaming. Of course, I've heard of really bad days of tabletop gaming. I remember the first time I heard this story about somebody not only like picking up their own model and dropping it on the ground, but picking up somebody else's model and dropping it on the ground. Oh my God. But I feel like those are tall tales, because I've never witnessed it. So I don't know.
You've never witnessed somebody pick up somebody else's model and drop it on the floor?
Dude, I have heard about a mutual of ours, Jeremy, that picked up a model and chucked it across the room. And I believe that it's possible. I just don't believe that it happened insofar as like when you hear, I don't know, like
I can confirm in a War Machine tournament that I was running at MGS that a player was getting mad that his models were dying, so he was picking his models up off the table and throwing them into his box that he was carrying them in.
There's a YouTuber
so
named
rough.
Northern Exile, and he does a series called Hobby Nightmares. And he's mainly around 40K. He used to be a 40K guy, and he's over in the UK. And he literally tells a story about a player at a tournament who was a little bit somewhat autistic on the spectrum. And he played against a really obnoxious opponent who was just this ultimate win at all costs power gamer, rubbing it in his face, blah, blah, blah.
Whack.
And the end of the game, you guys remember the big Games Workshop hard shell carrying cases?
I have 5
Oh
of them.
yeah.
The end
I wish I
result
had more of
apparently
those.
was after everybody was packing up their models, this jerk had his army on the table and he was catcalling this guy as he was leaving, and he literally turns around, takes his case, and just hammer puts it, just throws it in this perfect whatever, and it lands smack on this guy's AdMech army, like a 2,000 point totally painted army, smack in the middle of the whole damn thing.
Wait, so he took out an innocent bystander's AdMech army?
Well, I don't know how innocent. This is the guy on the spectrum was leaving and he was keeping his cool, and this jerk was literally catcalling him as he's leaving the event. And he's right at the door, apparently. He turns around, lobs his model case, and just demolishes this guy's army.
That's
so
rough.
it was the one player lodged his case at the antagonistic player's person and then ended up hitting that player's army instead.
Well, no, he wanted to hit the army.
Oh yeah, no, he was totally meaning to take
He
army out.
wanted to take the army out, and he did.
Well, sometimes you get what you deserve.
Yeah.
That's rough, man. And I don't know how old this story is, but it's not like AdMech models are really that old. I think they were only introduced in the time that I've been keenly aware of Games Workshop, so I can imagine the emotional distress.
I believe they started in 7th edition.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
They got 2 books in 7th edition, one for the AdMech, which had your Skeltari in it, and one for the Cult Mechanicus, which had your Cafatrian destroyers, breachers, and that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I don't remember them being that popular. I don't remember them really making a surgence, if you will, until Kill Team in 8th edition.
Yeah,
and
so
they got a little more fleshed out then.
Yeah, 8th edition, they got their Kill Team box, the starter box they came, which was your Skitarii, and then they added the new tanks and the flyers and the hover tanks and the jump troops, which have the weird big wings, and the mechanical horse dudes. So that all came in 8th and 9th edition. So they've grown quite a bit and became one solid group together, not 2 separate books.
Yep.
So were they more of like a soup option back when they were first introduced in 7th?
7th edition was a soup edition. That was the edition that we were able to take allies, so you could have like Tau with Eldar, which was everybody called Taudar. Yeah, so it was like
chowder.
It was just take the best thing from each faction that was allyable and put it on the table.
All right, you're gonna have Imperial Knights alongside Grey Knights. Nobody likes you.
Nobody.
With you'd have to have the Inquisitor that can let you shoot everything when you dropped it in next to him. I can't remember his name.
Yep.
Cortez, the one with the bird on it.
Codiez or Drago, yeah.
It was the one with the bird on his shoulder.
Codiez, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, the moment that they bring Primaris-sized Grey Knights is the lure is gonna be rough for me. It was already rough enough with
it's coming, Paddy. It's coming.
Yeah. I don't know, this whole nonsense where the lion was on sale and then not available.
I've already found about 5 files for the lion. If you really want one, Pat, I'll print you one.
We don't talk about that openly. Do you want it? What? Anyway, who didn't answer this favorite hobby?
I
Everybody did.
No.
Right? Oh no,
No,
I think
I
Pat
don't-
was the first one.
You
No,
were
I did first, then Pat. So you're left.
All right. This one is probably not going to come as much as a surprise. My favorite aspect is terrain crafting.
I knew it.
I seriously, I wish I did more of this, and it's probably the area I have the most fun with. I love making scenery, whether it's scatter or figuring out ways to do battle mats or boards. And I've got so many projects going that I need to absolutely sit down and finish one. And the real holdup is I'm trying to film it all. If I just were
Oh,
doing
yeah.
it start to finish and not caring about making a video or making something that I could show others how to replicate it, it'd be done. But I've got like a desert badlands battle mat and a bunch of foam chunks sprayed up to be the rocky terrain for that. I've literally got the tiles for an an underground crystal cavern. The tiles are made, some of the scatter's made. I really need to finish up the scatter and then that's a done deal. I've had so many ideas and so many things come to me, and the majority of what inspired me to be a YouTuber in this community came from guys who did terrain. Luke's APS, Geek Gaming Scenics, RFT Hobby, Berserker Works, Miniac, Miscast, Black Magic Craft. These guys are superb in their fields, and they've given me such inspiration, so many cool things to aspire to. And it's really just a matter of figuring out how to take a concept in my head and make it out of material. And then how do I do that cost effectively? How do I do that simply? How do I do that with a minimum of space and tools? And that was originally my idea for the channel was, okay, how do you do this on a budget, really cheap, ready to go? I've branched out quite a bit since then, and I really don't mind. But that's my thing. Scenery, terrain. I love creating a battlefield. And even thinking back to when I first started, that was what drew me. I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old and thinking, boy, wouldn't it be cool to make this hill I know about or make this building into something. I think I remember even 4 or 5 years old, I was trying to smoke bomb out like a cardboard building that I just very crudely built. And I said, "Hey, Dad, what do you have that makes smoke?" So,
Oh, that's cool.
but yeah, these are my favorite things.
I love building terrain. I hate painting terrain.
I hate painting terrain. What about you, Bruski? Do you hate painting terrain?
There's no distinction for me. It's really simple to do in my estimation. It's easier than painting minis. If anything, I can get terrain done faster than I can get minis done.
I find myself slacking on painting terrain because I feel like there's not enough depth. I just want to make it like 2 colors and then call it done. But then I don't think it looks done.
I know what you mean. And the thing is, if you literally did that and put it all on the table or on the mat or on the board or whatever and looked at it, you'd be like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong. It was a couple episodes ago I was talking about these templates that a feller had made for use with Infinity to make foam core buildings out. And I remember making a bunch of those. I got the orange peel texture spray from like Home Depot or whatever your garden variety home improvement store is. And I went outside and I sprayed these things with the orange peel texture spray. And then I went back over with that Krylon camouflage paint, just painting. I think I painted like the desert sand color on all the like ceilings and walkable areas. So it looked like it was like tan. And then I went and painted the rest of the building brown, green, or black. And then I would go back in with a dry brush. And then I would come back in with greeblies. Like I would make fake windows out of like popsicle stirrers. And then I would glue on a piece of paper towel that I would do a little bit of Mod Podge with some paint, whatever I wanted to make it look like tarp or cloth that was being hung as a window shanty or a window shade. That and then just printing off using my regular printer and printing off. Some feller made a bunch of like 40K propaganda posters, cutting those out with a scalpel and then Mod Podging those onto the side of the building like it was nobody's business but the emperor's business to get the message across the entire universe with not parody, propaganda posters. and they came out looking really good with minimal effort, minimal cost.
You gave me a bunch of those, actually. I was actually looking at them today. I was like, hey,
nice.
I need to put some of these on some buildings.
And I want to get back to making those templates. I mean, especially with the final release of Mutants, making templates for people to cut out of foam core or even cardboard to glue together. You know, whether you're using for Mutants or 40K or you know, I was thinking about what it might look like if you played on a battle mat where everything is kind of stark white. And if I made these templates, I would put kind of like a cartoony texture on it with like windows and stuff that are kind of markered in. So it would all look like specifically like it was drawn together. And then you'd have like these immaculately painted miniatures on it. So it would look like you had these really cool miniatures and they were literally like living and playing on like a storyboard background. But I don't know. It's something to think about. But Mel the Terrain Tuner, DM Scotty, Wylock, you know, in addition to all the names that you put out earlier. There's a lot of really good people out there. There's a lot of resources out there for people who want to learn how to make terrain.
Oh, heck yeah. Encounter Terrain on Instagram, vertical build guy, insane stuff.
And Savage, you know, one of these days I just there's gonna be somebody who makes their own podcast and they say Savage Bruski with my inspiration.
I mean, that would be cool. That would absolutely be cool.
It's funny how that works. I don't want to make a lot of money. I just the idea of somebody telling me, yeah, that guy made my tabletop experience better. That's where it's at.
Nothing beats that. Yeah, that is at the end of the day, and that's kind of what I've come to. I will be totally honest. I started out like, great, I'm going to make this a way I can have a career. I will probably make and sell something, you know, in the not too distant future. But at this point, I'm more interested in helping people hobby. And I find I get more out of that than, you know, oh wow, good, I've got monetized ads. Oh, good, you know, I'm officially getting sponsored and companies are sending me stuff to review. Like, who cares? It's inspiring and helping people get into the hobby. That's going to make a much more lasting impression.
Wholesome.
Speaking of which, I've got one more question. Some interesting little soul decided to throw one under the radar. I know we're getting close to wrapping here.
I did also get a question myself just now.
Oh, let's hear them.
Bro,
So-
Jeremy, jump in, man.
All right, so the question I got is, are there any upcoming games that are interest any of you that you've seen previewed?
Do you want to open?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. It's your
All right,
question.
yeah. Well, actually, there's a bunch of games that obviously I don't have a home for games right now. I'm kind of dabble in a lot of games. So there's a bunch coming out for me. I mean, I could probably do 3 hours, and I will be talking about a few of them with my first painting, but currently there's 3 big ones that I'm kind of really interested in. There is the relaunch of Carnopia coming out. It was kickstarted a few months back, or probably a year and a half back now, but they're getting really close to their putting it out to us. So we just got the beta test rulebook sent out to us. They had to get approval through the owner of the license. I don't know if you're aware of them. They're also the ones who did Mutant Chronicles, the company that owns it, not this company. But there is another company getting ready to put out a new Mutant Chronicles skirmish game. So I'm really looking forward to that, because Mutant Chronicles always interests me. It's another grim, dark universe, but it's mostly human centric. There's no real aliens. The closest to aliens is you get like some demon possessed guys. And then Rackham Games owned a game called Confrontation, and it was a fantasy game, and I loved the miniatures for D&D, and I didn't really get into the game at the time for the game itself because I wasn't much of a fantasy war gamer. I was more of a sci-fi war gamer, but I always loved the miniatures for D&D. So I did get a bunch of them, and now times progress, I've started getting more into fantasy gaming. And I did a Kickstarter for them that super failed. I put like $500 into it. Company was called Sans Detour. They took our money and ran. We didn't get nothing. And so I think it's
Dang.
there's two people putting out miniatures to be used in confrontation. They're advertising as confrontation friendly, but they can't sell them as confrontation miniatures because of licensing reasons. And it's but the aesthetics fit. They're brand new sculpts, and one's called Temple of the West, and the other one I think is called Centralis Miniatures. You can find them both on Facebook, and I believe one of the two companies is about to launch a Kickstarter this summer to put out some brand new miniatures. And I would love to get my Griffins increased in size. I'm short about a unit. I need like one more unit of some troopers to finish off that army and have a nice playable force for my fantasy skirmishy type games. So those are the big ones that I'm interested in that are coming up. Also, the name of that Dungeons and Dragons miniatures that you're pre-built that you can build yourself. I mean that and then paint. They're called frameworks.
Yeah.
They are roughly about $30 for 8 miniatures. They have an orc pack is the one that I was able to find. And they're already available. You can order them right now, and you can get it on Amazon and have it delivered tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah, probably where you live.
You have an Amazon close enough to you. You should be able to do
Dude,
the
it
same
still
thing.
takes them like 3 weeks to get me my stuff. They could drone it over the mountain and get it to me in a day if they wanted to.
Yeah, so Dungeons Dragons frameworks, those are the WizKids miniatures that are able to build. They look like they're roughly, your heroic 28s or true 32s. So really cool looking miniatures. So
Okay.
Bruski, do you want to go next, or do you want to finish?
Oddly enough, I'm really just trying to finish the stuff that I've gotten into in terms of games. I'm not looking at a lot of new stuff right now.
Yeah, because you're leaning hard into Warcaster Neo Mechanica right now, right?
Yeah, that's what aside from the scenery aspect of it, that's what I'm really working on. I'm finishing up the ISA. I want to finish up my marchers, and there's going to be more down the line, but I don't want to spoil things right now. And I know there's only 4 factions, so I can't really do that too much at the moment. But I do have a plan. I have a narrative campaign in mind for that. That's really where my beans are.
I was gonna say, did you get a sneak peek of the 5th faction you're just not telling everybody about?
No, I didn't. It's just what I'm gonna do with the factions and the story I'm gonna tell.
Ooh, I'm
Cool.
looking forward to it. I love Warcaster Neo Mechanica. I really wish I got more support from Privateer. I feel like it's almost the redhead stepchild right now.
Dude, I would, and I'm at that point where it's like, man, I could help Savage if I would just send him my Warcaster models, but what if I get the opportunity to play Warcaster and then I don't have any models? It's such a fun game. It's so good.
I've got everything conceptualized at this point. I have the story I want to tell, and I'm literally just figuring out a couple of the sequences and a couple of the names. But I've put together, I think people are really going to enjoy this, and it's going to be narrative style bat reps.
Cool.
And
Chat
I'm
GPT.
Negative. You don't want to feed that thing more algorithms, and then it's gonna be like,
Just use it.
It'll be
Patrick.
like the what was, if not the Orgoth invasion, what was the Infernal? It's like a Chat GPT flavored Infernal invasion, and we all have to like hop in a wormhole to a different universe.
Yeah, no, not going to be that remote. But after it's all said and done, and part of what I wanted to do is, as I do the bat reps, I'm going to do the videos concurrent how I made the terrain and the scenery.
Oh, that's
And
gonna
That'll
be
be
cool.
cool.
that
We
way,
could
so
play right along with you.
yeah, someone watches, like, it's the scenery is going to tell part of the story. It's going to make sense. Okay. And I'll without giving too much of a hint, I've literally got something that's almost like the Warcaster equivalent of D-Day. Okay. So great. How do you take a battle mat and build a beach? How do you add rocks to that? How do you add platforms to that? So
Bunkers.
concurrent to actually putting out the bat rep, there's going to be how I built all the scenery and terrain. and
That'll be
I'm going to
sweet.
keep that up. And I'm probably only going to do. There's only probably going to be 5 or 6 battles to this campaign, and I'm not going to spoil the other locations or where that's going to go. And I've got some help in the form of my friend Jasmine. I'm actually going to have her do a little bit of narration.
Cool.
I've got so much idea to it and so much already kind of laid down. I just need to actually get frickin' cracking, finish the minis, and actually finish the scenery.
Yeah, no,
All
it
right.
sounds great. So, have you ever thought about doing a game where half of the game takes place on a ship on the beach, and then then you kind of have to move off the ship onto the beach?
I plead the fifth.
I've done it. Booty Bay.
Booty Bay was a little different. We did
A
have
little bit
ships,
different.
but it was more like docks. There was no real beach.
Yeah, pleading the fifth.
I think we've talked about this before, but coming up with different narrative campaign ideas. So maybe, just another thing to put in our back pocket for an episode is talking about conceptualizing narrative campaigns. I think that's kind of worth to talk about.
Oh, hell yeah.
Anyway,
I think I just found a new
Um,
channel I want to check out.
There you go.
as far as games that I'm excited to check out, earlier I was talking about these wretched verses. They are a super reasonable price. I mean, really, they're underselling these zines at $250 a pop at Big Geek Emporium. I'm gonna finish reading through number 4, and I might try to work my way through the backlogs. I know that they have one more wretched epic flavored zine. I think it might be the second issue or so. But I'm excited for that as far as like TTRPGs go. Of course, I'm working on my own. That one kind of got shifted as I'm trying to work my way through completing the Chalt zine for Venger Satanis's Game Jam. Other than that, I talked a little bit to Sea Dog Game Studios about the next edition about Tech Commander. I've never played an MSV game. I've never played, something like Cav or BattleTech. So I'm super excited to see where that goes. And I think I might actually make that my first mech game.
After we talked about it last week, I actually looked at it a little bit more, and I think it's more scaled to be used at 28 millimeter. And the ship game we talked about, it's totally a 28 millimeter, more like Blood and Plunder type game.
And that's the scale that I like. So I'm excited to see what he's coming up with that. And I mean, if there's any time that I can manage or spare that I can help them out with that, I absolutely will, because that's a project I believe in. I think it looks super cool. And then yeah.
Nice.
And
very
then
nice.
There was another one that I was looking at. Not necessarily game related, but hobby adjacent, was Titancraft just put, I just noticed that they put up a notice that they're going to put out their third wave of STL assets. If you're not familiar with titancraft.com, they're kind of like an analog to Hero Forge, but instead of buying in Hero Forge, they have like subscription tiers. Titancraft, you buy the asset pack. So if you really want to build sci-fi miniatures, you buy all the sci-fi assets, and then you can make and download as many miniatures as you want for your 3D printer. Or they have a decent, like company 3D printed that they'll mail you, much like Hero Forge. But they said on their website that they have a third wave of different asset packs that are going to be coming out. And so I'm really looking out for that. I spent a good deal of my day today just recreating characters that are on the cover of the Mutants zine. And that was a blast. I even screen recorded those things because I'm thinking I'm gonna be doing some videos where it's me making a dude in Titancraft printing him out, painting him. But instead of like talking about making, printing, and painting him, I'm actually going to just narrate a story that involves that character.
Oh,
And
that'd be cool.
then yeah, and then if I get it to successfully print, I'll print up a secondary one that at the end of the month, every month, I'll do like a raffle or a drawing for my Subscribe Star or coffee brand coffee affiliate purchasers. Do a raffle for them to win a miniature from me.
Nice.
Great idea.
Alrighty. I guess my last question, this is the one that kind of snuck in under the radar on me. Someone asked on NGL, favorite mini you've ever painted.
Ooh.
I'm really simple on that one. On my Instagram, you guys, it's one of my pinned pictures up at the top. It's gonna sound really dumb. Necron scarabs.
Ooh,
What?
I
gotta look at it now.
I love the Mephrit Dynasty, which are the ones they usually have orange instead of green. They're orange, and the lore behind them is awesome because they literally pull. Those are the guys who harvest suns and turn that into their weaponry. And so I have this. These guys were really simple, but it's the first time I started doing like light sourcing, and I just have these scarab bases, and they're on this black sort of charred earth kind of soil with blue, like light teal blue crystals offset with that orange glow from the scarab lenses and eyes. And it just, for me, it was just the perfect model. It was really simple. People look at that and go, that's too easy. But that, I love those little things.
No, I actually just started looking at it right now, and I love
Is it the one that's actually in the picture of the question?
The one I put on my story, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I love those. I love that color blue. So the crystal that you used, did you cast and dye that crystal?
No. I bought both of the basing materials. Were from Geek Gaming Scenics. He's a YouTuber, and he started making his own lines. The crystals come from him, and I think it's Urban Rubble or Urban Grid. I forget what he calls it, but it's basically you get a bag. I don't know how big or how much to describe it as, but I haven't run out anywhere near yet.
Nice.
But you glue that down, and there you go.
Oh yeah, I'm checking out your Hazaroth too. He looks pretty dope.
I thought that was a cool project, and I did some very new stuff on that. I don't love it. I think it came out a little too comical, if I'm honest, but it was good work for what I can do. But my favorite probably, yeah, scarabs.
I'm gonna Instagram stalk you. You're gonna get all these notifications that show my love for you.
I already am. I'm warm and fuzzy.
Oh, you're gonna get so much hotter.
All right,
Jeremy,
but
what was your favorite model? Because
yeah. What do you guys got?
I want to like grab my whole computer. I'm gonna walk into my hobby room and see if I can see what it is that's my favorite.
My favorite model that I ever painted, I mean, not printed, is a model from Confrontation. He is a mercenary from the Caldowan, the city of Caldowan, and he's like a bald head. He has like a braided mustache that goes down into his beard. It's almost like a goatee though. I don't think he has chin hair. I'd have to go look at it again. He has a double-handed big sword, and I use him almost exclusively for when I play fantasy games. It's like that's my character. Oh yeah, and he has a scar across his face. So he's mine, but currently he's in my daughter's warband for her Rangers of Shadow Deep as one of her fighters, like her man-at-arms. Because he didn't fit in with the faction I was kind of building for myself for that story. Because I'm currently using the miniatures from a game called Freebooter. That sounds right. So, but yeah, no, that's my favorite miniature I ever painted. He turned out super beautiful. He's probably about 12 years old now. I think I painted him in 2010. 11 time frame where I painted him up to be a character in D&D for he was an NPC in D&D for a campaign that I was running with a group of people in El Paso. And he kind of led them on their adventure. He was kind of like their plot giver or their dungeon master type character, but he was a fighter. So that's my favorite character ever.
Awesome. And you, Patty?
Man, I don't know if I can answer this question. That's rough. I can't say that I paint nearly as much as Jeremy does, at least these days. But I look at the shelves that I put up in my hobby room, and I'm like, man, I thought this was going to be easy, and it's not.
It's because 90% of your models are in a little metal box on top of each other, rubbing their paint off.
Ooh, fair point. That's rough.
Shots fired again.
Dude, and I just had a nightmare last night about Steven the Ever Hungry, the Yanti snake eye that I kit bashed for Mutants.
Oh, it's such a beautiful model too.
Dude, I had a bad dream that he like shattered into pieces. Picked him up. I was like, no.
That would be sad.
I want to know what, and I'll send a picture of him to Bruski too, because I'm not sure if he's ever like really seen him. I know he's popped up in like my live streams before, but
the Red Chef.
The Red Chef. That's correct.
I want to say I've seen this, but yeah.
So he's a Yanti snake model. You know, he's got the snake body, serpentine body with the serpentine head, neck, and all that, but he's got the human arms with hands. And he had 2 scimitars, which I chopped off. I gave him a big old meat cleaver, an apron, a chef hat, and what looks like a man, we were just talking about an AdMech carbine of sorts.
Mhm.
And that's probably one of my favorite kit bashes, because I think I did you know, I added the 1 GW piece, but I sculpted the apron, I sculpted the chef hat, I sculpted the meat cleaver, and he looks really good. But you know, the models that stand out the most, I think, are going to be my colossals. I have the Glacier King, the Sea King, and
oh, your one from the elves, the Retribution one. That's actually a really good paint job.
Yeah, I'm super proud of that. You want to know the really silly thing is like the one that like the simple model that I really love. I painted one of the WizKid Nolzur's gazers blue with a white eye, and it's one of those like really simple miniatures, and just the way that he came out, I think I must have painted him in maybe just over an hour. And I think for the time that I spent painting him versus the overall effect of the mini, it's pretty solid. It's definitely one of those ones that I like to showcase, like, oh, you can't paint anything good with contrast. And I'm like, I painted this with contrast. Oh, wow, that's really good. So
that guy just didn't want to hurt your feelings.
I think it was you. Shut
up.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to hurt your feelings. Duh.
One of the ones that I'm not super proud of painting with the contrast, and it's one of the ones that really hurts my feelings because I wanted this model for so long, was the big nameless Dead Zone guy. What's his name again?
The Goliath?
The Goliath. Yeah, he's not bad. He didn't come out looking like the rest of my Dead Zone nameless models. So anyway, let me not answer the question by saying one of my least favorite models I painted, because there was no way I was going to answer my favorite. It's like asking which of my kids is my favorite. How dare you ask?
I was actually going to say, what have you ever actually started to paint a model that then you just can't finish? Like you just are finding it like impossible to get that model finished?
I did. For the longest time. It was who is the guy I finished on stream the other day? Horgel 2.
Oh yeah, all right.
Horgel 2.
That was gorgeous work, dude.
I started painting him, and he was one of the few models that
I started painting, got far enough along, was like, I don't like how it's coming along. So I put him down, and then I stripped him down. I reprimed him. And the silly thing is, I really didn't change much about how I was painting him. I just sat down and finished him. It's like cute baby duck to ugly duckling, and then I abandoned this ugly duckling that became a beautiful model. And if I just would have stayed in there and worked on him, he probably would have seen a lot more table time.
Yeah, for me it's Xerxes too, actually.
Xerxes.
Yeah, I just can't get that rhino is intimidating.
Yeah.
Slaughtering all those men you sent earlier has left a nasty cramp in my leg, so kneeling will be difficult.
What about you, Bruski? What was there a not favorite model you've painted that you just stuck it through, or maybe even entirely abandoned?
Oof. It's a good question. I don't think so.
Well, you're a better man than I.
Yeah,
I just
Bruski the painting machine. I have too many models. I'm scattered. I have too many models. I can't finish half of them.
well, it's not so much of a problem of having a ton of models and all that other stuff. I'm the most simplistic son of a bitch in the world, in that if I'm really not interested in doing something, I don't do it.
Fair enough.
I have no interest in playing this army. Yeah, that's fun. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, that's a great model. I'm not fucking buying it.
I have a kind of experience with that. I should have done this. I should have said no. I took a commission once from this guy.
I should have said no.
I should have said no. He took this commission. This guy wanted his army painted bright freaking yellow and like the brightest red, and it looked like freaking Hulk Hogan's colors. And I airbrushed
That's
all
respectable.
this yellow. Like it took me probably a week. It was a massive army, and it took me probably a week to get all these guys airbrushed white, then airbrushed yellow, and then go in and started doing all this edging with the red, because I had to have red around all the pauldrons, and it's 100 dudes, so it's not like a quick easy thing. And I'd get done with a squad of devastators, and then he'd like, oh, I don't want them to have grav cannons anymore. Can you take all the grav cannons off and put on
Get
melta
out.
cannons?
No way.
Get out.
Oh yeah, no, it got
Who
and I
is
got to
this
the
guy?
I won't say names, but
Of course, I wouldn't ask you to say
and
names.
so and I didn't have a job at the time, so he was so I just got out of the active duty army, and I hadn't quite started working at the game store yet. And I gave him, I figured I could do this whole army in a 2-month period, but he kept changing things on me all the time. And I actually had another commission in front of him that he kind of paid me to bump because he needed it for a tournament. But then he kept changing stuff on me. Like every dang other day, it felt like it gave me he wanted something done differently. Instead of having razorbacks, he wanted rhinos or something, and it just got to the point I was getting annoying. And when I got the job at MGS, the military gaming store, I stopped paying it totally. and I didn't mind because he'd paid me with 3 ghost kills and a Taunar for the Tau. But then he told me he bought the Taunar. It was like a China cast one, so it wasn't even like a full price one. And I'm like, the amount of paint work I'm doing is worth the money that an actual Taunar would have cost. And you just told me you got the Taunar for like a third of that price. You just made me not want to paint your shit anymore. And so I gave it back to him with the Taunar and 1,000 pieces.
Yeah, wrecked.
Nice. Yeah, don't be that guy,
dude.
And write
that was
contracts when you do these things. Like, geez, that's so annoying.
He was the reason
I'm not.
He was the reason I started doing contracts.
I'm not going to change my army list 5 times while you're in the middle of painting it. Yeah, I'm not going to change the weapon loadouts on models you've already built and based. Yeah, no brainers, people. If you're going to commission people to paint, get them the models or tell them exactly how you want it and let it be.
And just like a word of caution, like, I'm not saying don't butter your bread like doing commissions, because there's work to be had there. But man, I tell you what, if there was ever a day where I sat down and started painting a miniature and said, Yep, nope, don't like that. And I'll just put that away. Man, you're gonna face a lot of those days as a commission painter, and you're really gonna have to find the intestinal fortitude to keep driving on.
That's
when you've
right,
got no
lad.
spirit to drive on with.
You gotta keep going. So we'll put a flag at the end to give you freaking hope.
Yeah. Well, geez, and we were sitting here thinking that we might barely be able to eke out an hour-long episode, and here we are.
Bullshitters.
Hour,
A
hour
lot
and
of
10
us.
minutes roughly.
We're all liars. All right. I think
Oh,
I'm just
don't
gonna
you say that.
have to put my foot down and go, all right, cool. So that's enough for one night. We'll obviously I'm sure we'll have more Q&A sessions in the future and we'll be able to go over more of those and prep for it. But I think we're gonna call it there. As always, check us out. Paddy's Parlor Games on Facebook, War God Wargaming on YouTube, Facebook, Insta, and Twitter. Savage Bruce, you guys know me. I'm not even going to shout myself out at this point. You're here. But anyway, we're very glad to have given you another episode of the podcast. Next week, we will discuss the pillars of nerdiness.
Yeah, we're gonna find out how many pillars is it that is necessary to hold up that house.
And burn it to the ground, most likely.
Is pyromancy a pillar of nerdiness?
No.
Pyromancy, no.
Fire.
What the hell? Pyromaniacy? Yes. Let's get it right. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun as always. We'll see you on the next one. Check us out. Have yourself a very good evening or day or whenever you happen to be listening to this. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Good night, everybody.
Later.